my guest has revived, reinterpreted, and put on the international map an ancient Indian tradition. Delighted to welcome Mr. B.K.S. Iyengar.
Thank you very
who's
much.
Perhaps the best known yoga expert and teacher anywhere in the world. Mr. Iyengar, tell us a little bit about yoga. What can we understand by the idea of yoga?
You know, the word yoga was interpreted as karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, hatha yoga, mantra yoga only about 200 years ago, 150 to 200 years back. Previously it was called margas, or the paths. So there were only 4 paths as according to the rishis' statements: jnana marga, bhakti marga, karma marga and yoga marga. But when Vivekananda ji presented this great art, when he said karma yoga, so he had to call this yoga marga as raja yoga, and then the division started coming. But honestly, having read lots of books on yoga, having practiced yoga, as far as my understanding goes, yoga is one. As people call God in different names, but he is one. Yoga is one, but as it branches off the trunk, so different people give different names. Hatha yoga has been misinterpreted, certainly to a very great extent, as physical yoga. But hatha means willpower. And when the word Raja Yoga has been used, they have taken only from Hatha Yoga text. Indriyanyam hi manonataha, manonatasya marataha, maratasya layo nataha, salayo nadamastritaha. That depends upon breath. So, king of the senses or the mind. So mind is considered as the king, therefore the word Raja Yoga came, control of mind. Whereas willpower is stronger than mind. It's a gross product of the mind, is a gross product of willpower, intelligence and so on and so forth. So considering all this, Patanjali considers all this put together as Kriya Yoga. And this Kriya Yoga as tapas, swadhyaya and Ishvara Pranidhana. In the art of tapas, we have, again, misinterpretation is there, austerity and so on and so forth. Kayendriya siddhir ashiddhikshayat tapasa, that is what Patanjali says. The definition of tapas is to cleanse the body and to keep the senses clean. That means it is karma marga. Because they have to practice yama, niyama, rituals. In those days, karma marga was quite different than what we are speaking of karma marga today. Without serving their daily prayers, sandhya, rituals, they were all considered as karma marga. So yoga, for me, as far as I understand, is to unite the body with the mind and taking body and mind together to be in par with the eternal, evergreen state of this self.
In most people's sort of experience and sort of the image that they get when they think of yoga is obviously yogic postures.
Yes.
And particularly when we look at sort of your perhaps most famous book, Light in Yoga, you see these incredibly complex postures which seem unattainable.
Yes.
What function and purpose do these serve?
It is question of, to keep each and every fiber in the body healthy. If you permit me, I will give you a new revelation according to Patanjali alone. People say any comfortable pose where you feel a joy is an asana. But having studied so much, I feel that when Patanjali says sthira sukhamasana, sthira, I have to connect to the very essence of yoga, yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. When the chitta vrittis of the chitta, or the waves of the thoughts or waves of the consciousness is restrained, there is stability. So while practicing the asanas in a spiritual line, even Patanjali says stability of the mind will come by the practice of asanas, because there is no other movement except that posture. And sukha, when he uses the word, whether it's a spiritual bliss or a mental bliss. Patanjali again says, Thira Sukham, Raga, Sukha, Sukhanushayi Ragaha. The happiness leads to attachment. Here he says, Thira Sukham Asanam. Here, if we take that meaning of that Sukha, he is in the sutra where he says, Vitarka Vichara Ananda Asmita Rupa Anugamat Samprajnataha, state of Samadhi. So this Sukha is that of Ananda, of Samadhi, which he explains. By that, you experience the state of infinity.
You know, you mentioned this aspect of being comfortable.
Yes.
And you've sort of given this added fresh insight into this.
Yes.
You know, when people talk about the kind of yoga you
Yes,
teach, they
yes.
say he's a very stern taskmaster. He pushes you. And is the yoga student pushed to the threshold of discomfort? Is that?
If I use again, see, if it is so easy, then Patanjali is not at all a disciplinarian. Atha yoga anushasanam, code of discipline. The very sutra begins, what is yoga? Code of discipline. Now tell me whether I should follow a code of discipline or not.
But does that code of discipline need to take you to the threshold of pain?
It's not question of threshold, it is question of interpenetration. We have got outer body, we have got inner body, we have got innermost body, where the yogis have divided the body into 5 constituents called physical body, physiological body, psychological body, intellectual body, and space body. Unless and until we interpenetrate one after the other, the peripheral body first has to be attacked, then peripheral body has to be connected to the physiological body, which is the bridge for the mind. So we have to cross over the bridge on the physiological body, from the physical body to mental body. Then using the mental body, we have to understand, discriminate each and every part. So after discrimination, inner penetrating, then naturally you find that each and every cell in the system has its own intelligence, has its own memory, so that the cells can take of the body for me to think of God, the higher level of spiritual line. That is what yoga teaches, sir. The Atman, which is the king of the body, has to flow without any interruptions in the system. So that is known as dis-ease, discomfort. So we do various asanas, and yogis gave so many asanas for the simple reason that as God is in the universal existence in everything, the yogi started, can I create this Atman to take various shapes and enjoy the various shapes of the body? That is how the asanas came into existence.
As a purist, how would you respond to the fact that in most cities now,
Yes.
you have different groups and institutions who are sort of conducting yoga for better living courses,
Yes.
who don't really go into the kind of detail and depth that you do? What advice would you give to people who want to sort of do yoga, so they want to get rid of
Sir,
arthritis or?
See, from the time immemorial, both good and evil were going together. Good and bad were going together. And God has given us discriminative power. When after learning the gross part, or the peripheral art of yoga, naturally one has to interpenetrate. But the people are not willing to interpenetrate. That's why the purity of yoga is lost. So, as Duryodhana was also there, Dharmaraja was also there, who was an example of right and another example of evil, but both were going together. Then later the right alone came up. So here also probably I am very happy that yoga, which was forgotten entirely, now like mushrooms it has come everywhere, and at least they have made a beginning, and I am sure when a beginning has been made, after touching the gross, probably they settle in the subtlest as time goes by.
Given sort of this interpenetration of mind and
Yes.
body and
Yes.
different levels that you've referred to, is it possible for a spiritually evolved master who has control of his mind
Yes.
to then not need the physical processes of yoga?
No, sir, it is also needed. If you compare Yoga Sutras and others, I say there, for example, I can give the example. I have taught, in the living example, I have taught Krishnaji, J. Krishnamurti. Such a highly evolved person. What are the problems he had? Nobody knew. Now only after the death, he said he died of cancer. But remember, he had the cancer in 1960. Cancer of the prostate glands. So with all that, why did he call me to teach yoga? And the man was doing 3 hours every day. So that shows that though they had reached a certain level, the body was decaying. And like Krishnamurti realized, and he started doing. So 1960, he lived for 25 years with the cancer, which is an amazement, or I can say it's a miracle of yoga. For him to be kept so long and so lively. And another example of Sri Ramana Maharshi, he died of cancer. Though he had reached the highest level, but at the same, though he was detached, Ramana Maharshi was completely detached. Though he said, all right, he can amputate my arm. Do you and I, have we got that willpower to surrender to such an extent? So, seeing this example, Patanjali says, very well he has said, anavasthitattvani chitta vikshepas tantara. Though you have reached the state of samadhi, remember the fall may come, so please continue. He is the only man, as a practical person, who has guided, even after reaching the samadhi, do not stop your sadhana. It becomes anavastha. Avastha becomes anavastha. So you lose control.
Is there a risk that people who are doing yoga, as you described, at its grosser levels,
Yes.
may develop a heightened sense of body consciousness?
You are right. Yoga is working on a threshold. And because I don't live the tradition, though I am a rationalist, Patanjali used the word that bhoga and apavarga. Yoga gives you bhoga, or it may take you to apavarga. That means the moment you take the practice of yoga, you are working on the threshold. So if you miss the right path, you are fallen, but you go back to bhoga. Suppose you come out of that threshold, you go to the other side of the threshold, that is known as apavarga, or freedom from bondage. And that's the line of yoga is like that only, sir. And that's why we have got a special quality called buddhi. And I make funs with my pupils. Buddhu, we call it Buddha, is it not? Because he has no buddhi. So when you develop buddhi, you become Buddha.
You mentioned the aspect of that you were a rationalist.
Yes.
Does sort of God or divinity enter into the
Yes,
scheme
sir.
of yoga?
I practiced in my early days just to get rid of my tuberculosis. Now, I have lived for, it was found out when I was a boy of 13 years. The doctor said I may not survive. So I have lived, now I'm 77 completed, 78 running, and I think I may live another 20, 30 years certainly in this spirit. So I say it has given me a plenty of things, but when I am doing yoga, I do not do yoga as a physical yoga. What type of, openings come in my inner body? That's what I observe. So naturally my people start benefiting a great deal.
Could you share with us what kind of openings happen to you in the inner body?
As you speak of the threshold, the intellectual threshold is, we speak of attention. And when we speak of attention, it is an intellectual vertical grip. But at the same time, the consciousness, which is subtler than intelligence, fades. If I think of my hand, I forget the consciousness in the leg. If I think of the leg, I forget the consciousness in the hand. So what this interpenetration has given me this knowledge that the attention and awareness. Without losing the awareness, can I be attentive? When I am attentive, am I losing the awareness of the consciousness? So this is known as the inner opening. So I am connecting today that awareness is a horizontal expansion of the intelligence, and attention is a vertical growth of intelligence. So how to diffuse the vertical one horizontally and horizontal one vertically, that is what my so many poses have taught me now.
What is the role of divinity or God for you?
When the awareness and attention, when they come together, there is no movement of intelligence, there is no movement of mind. So there is a state where my body, my mind, my breath finds no differences at all. I am living, even now, though I am talking to you, even my warmth of my toe, I can feel how much warm it is. Is this warmth and that warmth, are they equal? So that is known as intuitive observation.
Does that intuitive observation manifest in the form of a deity?
Well, sometimes it has happened to me, not always. So having felt that several times, the mind immediately jumps to that state. Because my Atma is not only hidden inside, but it is outside the skin also. So I am in contact, what you call the Pindanda and the Brahmanda, or the microcosm is in contact with the macrocosm. If somebody moves here, your hand, you can feel my heat. So the yoga, what we call Yogagni, has kept 1 inch my heat from here. If you keep my finger here, your finger start feeling the heat. So this is what my intuition opens me. Actually, what is intuition is nothing but tutor from inside. Mind cannot tutor, intelligence cannot tutor, so something tutors me. At that time, what happens? There is no movement, there is no thought. It's completely a state of forgetfulness of body and mind, but to be one with the cosmic energy and the individual energy meeting together. That's how it is pranayama.
When you talk about energy and you're talking about pranayam and you're talking about prana,
yes.
Could you sort of share with us the explanation of prana as opposed to the physical breath that we're breathing in and out?
Sir, I have to give a new word. Vishwa Chaitanya Shakti is the cosmic energy. But unfortunately, that is because prana is infinite, which cannot be seen by these eyes. Like God cannot be seen easily. The hidden energy, which is in the cosmic energy, is known as prana. We are made up of panchavayus, prana, apana, vyana, udana and samana. So this prana and apana, udana, samana are the 5 vayus. Then which is the major vayu? It took me 60 years to know that prana is quite different to Vishwa Chaitanya Shakti.
What is Vishwa Chaitanya Shakti?
The power which is in the external atmosphere, which cannot be explained, which cannot be expressed, but only can be felt. So that power is taken through our normal inhalation, exhalation. That power which cannot be, unless the scientists work and separate, like a atom and nuclear atoms. Like that, there are nuclear atoms in the atmospheric air, which produces energy in our system. By coming in contact with the inner energy, the outer energy fuses together and produces energy, like electricity. So if we can understand that when we do Puraka, we are drawing that inner essence of the breath. That's why the yogis gave blocking of the nostrils. How much you have to find where the space is, prananadi, where the energy goes through, how does it feel, how much it vibrates. This all comes in. This is a technical subject which I don't want to deal now. So when we are holding this, like normal breathing, even the gross air may go in and may go out. That is only, as I said, like peripheral. First they gave a peripheral external pranayama. Then they come to the internal pranayama, that nadishodhana. So how much you have to keep when you are doing on the right, how much passage? Is the breath going exactly on that hole or is it touching elsewhere? And in that pranayama what happens? The gross atmosphere rests on the carpet of the membranes and only the needed energical air goes into the lungs. And that's why it is called nadishodhana. See, unless you search that nadi, the nadi cannot become pure. That's why they gave the name Nadishodhana, which I worked very hard to find out that this is the secret of pranayama.
What are the risks involved for a student who goes and does these courses, as you mentioned, at the grosser elements, if some of this balancing is not got right and is imprecise?
Well, gross form does not affect them very soon. But as they go on, as I told you, that awareness will be lost. Suppose you are doing Sarvangasana, for example. You may be using your right arm on your back, not using the left arm of equal pressure. So when there are differences of pressures, one side is healthy, another side is unhealthy. That is only Hatha Yoga. That is known as Hatha Yoga. Body is divided into two parts, right and left, or they call it Ida and Pingala. Unification of Ida and Pingala is yoga, as Patanjali or Upanishad says, unification of Jivatma and Paramatma is yoga. Hatha Yoga Pradipika says, no, the right side and the left side coming together, understanding the right, understanding the left, left understanding the right, and in these postures they teach you the communication between the right and left, and if this communication is understood, that is known as the yoga. That is known the actual meaning of Hatha Yoga. Ha means sun, Ta means moon. So Ha is sun, Ta means moon. So consciousness reaching, which is tossing, should come in contact with the sun, that is Atman. So when they come together, well, it is yoga, that is no Hatha Yoga at all. So the problem comes that when they do it, they may not be moving. They may be flexing one knee more, one knee less. So this knee will be healthy, this knee will be unhealthy. Then they do not know. This, as you said, use the word before, that aggressiveness and all. They do not understand. This is not aggressiveness. One side is strong, one side is weak. So one side is violent, one side is non-violent. In violence, also deliberately we murder these cells. Not using these cells by non-violent practice, we are also murdering because we are not supplying the energy, and that is what is known as Hatha Yoga. So peripherally later, that's what I said, they may be practicing, but the diseases may creep in because the awareness is not there, only attention is there. So if they understand the awareness, that consciousness, is it moving everywhere? And Patanjali used the word, when you are doing the asana, chitta prasadanam, the gracefulness of the consciousness should be felt everywhere. Then no chance of a disease. So physical disease will come, no other diseases will come. But whereas in pranayama, it may affect the mind, because many of the people, they take the ratio of 1:4. So if you take 6 seconds of inhalation, you have to hold two times. So 12 seconds of retention and 24 seconds of exhalation. A person who cannot take 5 seconds inhalation, 5 seconds exhalation, if he plays this game, this mathematical calculation of I have to do 24, then his mind is shaky, breath is shaky, so he will become a mental wreck. But if caution is taken, I don't think that it is a dangerous one.
What role can yoga play for sort of contemporary psychosomatic diseases? People suffer from depression, from anxiety, from stress.
Sir, theoretically is different, but factually, if you come and visit me, my institute, how many depressed students I have brought back to life? But I have not used one psycho word, nor soma word. Only I have taught everything through the eyes, because eyes are closer to the brain. And if the eyes are alert, their brain becomes alert.
What do you teach to the eyes? Can you explain?
When they do the poses, they have to keep their eyes open. They have to do from the corner. If they have to lift up, they have to lift up their eyes. Even if they do Sarvangasana, the movement of the leg should be connected to the eyes. So the freshness comes to them. I have handled a lot of drug addicts. You must have heard, many people must have heard about Father Joe Ferreira, who is doing a lot of work. What is he doing? He has taken all my things and he is introducing to the drug addicts. So yoga, without soma there is no psycho, without psycho there is no soma. They go together. If you ask the word very chitta vritti nirodha, chitta is in the body, body is a form of chitta, a gross form of chitta. So psychosomatic science was used by Patanjali long ago without using the word psychosomatic science. So this contact of the body, which is no skeletal body in contact with the circulatory system is connected to the nervous system. When the nervous system is connected, which is known as an indirect unconscious mind. So when the nerves are strengthened, positive brain comes to them, positive thinking will come. So this way I try without telling them. And as we give bath to keep our body clean, so I change the system for them so that how to supply blood to their brain so that the effect of the drug, what it gives on the brain, I give them in the same poses. Don't you feel this sensation without taking drugs? They say something amazing. So that's how I take them back to yoga and to natural life.
As someone who has reached the pinnacle of yogic practice and as a teacher has impacted and touched the lives of millions of people all over the world, what aspiration or agenda do you have for the 20, 30 years that you said you will live?
Nothing, sir, only to practice. See, everybody asks me nowadays, even now, I teach less, I practice 5-6 hours. If you want to, you can ask my daughter whether I practice or not. Where I have stopped, up to now, as you put me, I jocularly say to everybody, I did up to now a human service. As I benefited, I wanted others to get benefited. So I did. I think I've got more than 20 to 30 million students spread all over the world. And there is also a second ring, third ring. Fortunately, what I have taught will not die soon. If God gives me another life, so that I can spread that knowledge more and more to my students who want to learn yoga in the next life.
Well, we pray for the success of that endeavor. Thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you.